Every once in a while, you get the privilege and the honor of introducing someone that you think the world of, and that's what I'm going to be doing here today. Sonny Ray, who has one of the greatest names, is also a wonderful human being himself, worthy of an awesome name, and I have gotten to know him, his family, wife, and daughter, and I can tell you and assure you that great things are going to be happening for Sonny and Unocoin. It is the largest exchange in India. Sonny founded it in 2013. The team has done an extraordinary job of building the business. Today it has 175,000 members, adding between 1,000 and 2,000. Last month there was 1,000 new users, new Bitcoin participants, which means 30,000 added that month. Now it's running at a 2,000 rate per day, which means double that number. Of course, 60 or more thousand is expected this month to join. The demonetization in India that occurred recently was but a stimulus into making this business terrific and growing as rapidly as it is. Sonny, who founded it in Bangalore, continues to have a huge influence from his technical background, as well as what he doesn't think he has is great sales and marketing skill sets, which I know he does. So the entire team is to be congratulated, and I think you're going to love the presentation, and you're going to love Sonny even more.
All right, welcome. So I was already nervous coming up, and that didn't help at all. Okay, thank you, Flip. I appreciate that. So I've only got about 10 minutes, so I'm going to talk a little quickly because I'm super excited about what we're speaking about here. So again, my name is Sonny. I'm one of the co-founders of Unocoin. Unocoin is India's leading Bitcoin company. We essentially make it easy for anybody in India to buy, sell, use, store, accept Bitcoin. And you know, we're all here talking about blockchain, we're talking about POCs, and 5 years later, 10 years later. Today I'm going to talk to you about what's actually happening with our company on the ground. But before I do, I wanted to just share one thing with you guys. So I'm an electrical engineer. I graduated like 15, 16 years ago. And upon doing so, I ran my own financial brokerage for a few years. And I felt like the more licenses I got in that space, the less I knew about money. And the more people I would speak to, the less I felt like I understood math. And then what happened is that before the 2007-2008 crisis, I couldn't quite articulate what the problems were in the financial system, but I felt like there were some major ones. And around that time, I ended up leaving the space, and I spent the better part of my career, about 8 years, working in robotics. So I was a business development guy. I traveled the world, and I sold robots to MITs and Stanfords, IITs, Georgia Techs. And what I discovered in traveling around all over the world is that there's a lot of differences, right? So we have different religions, different governments, different food we eat, different music we listen to, different skin color, different everything. But there's just this one thing that I found that almost everybody universally cares about. You know what that is? It's money, exactly. When you mention the word money, the funny thing is that normally even the people who weren't really paying attention kind of start paying attention. And here's the most exciting part. So over the last 4 or 5 years, I've literally been asking this question to everyone I meet, including my 4-year-old cousin, to my grandmother, to CEOs of banks. And I asked them, can you explain to me what is money? Can you just give me like a couple lines, just explain to me what is money? And you know what the funny thing is? Every single person I've ever asked that question to has a different answer. Some people say money is life, or money is this, and money is that, but nobody can give me a clear answer. And I found that very, very interesting, because here we are, we go to school our whole lives, we wake up early in the morning, we go to work, we work really hard to earn money, we get into divorces because of money, we get into wars because of money, yet most people don't know what money is. Right? So I think that's somewhat problematic. And the fact that Bitcoin just gets us to ask the question, what is money, I think is very, very exciting. So we're going to take a quick tour here through the history of money. And unfortunately, I only have like 8 minutes left, so it's going to be really quick. But 100,000 years ago, most people think that money emerged from barter. So barter essentially insists that, I'm in the middle of a forest, I killed a caribou, and Joseph's right there, and all of a sudden he just happened to have, 4 cups of rice, and we just trade, and it just happened. But what are the odds that that would actually happen? And in fact, that's not what happened. What would happen is I'd be in the middle of a forest, we'd kill a caribou. If I liked someone like Joseph, I might say, hey, you know what, here's some caribou, and then all we would really do is we would just remember. We would just remember that I gave him some caribou, and then maybe 6 months later, he might be like, hey, there's that guy that gave me some food for my family, here's some rice. So really what happened is money emerged from a subjective ledger where people just remembered things in their brains. Then that got kind of complicated, right? You can imagine. So things like seashells and different things emerged all over the world in terms of what would be known as money in different tribes. And these were what you could refer to as objective ledgers. So these were, where like in my tribe, we might be using seashells, and another tribe, they might be using something else. But then the problem came about is that, well, let's say our tribe is using A and your tribe is using B. How do we trade between one another? So then, about 5,000 years ago, the first universal ledger emerged, and that universal ledger was essentially gold. Gold wasn't told, governments didn't say everybody must use gold as a form of money. It literally emerged from the free markets because it had properties that made it almost perfect as a form of money. So 3 myths about money, and it's funny because, you're at a finance conference, yet you'd be surprised as to how many people still believe in some of this. So people believe that money came from barter. It's born out of debts. People think that money has to be backed. In fact, it's nothing more than just a ledger. And last but not least, people think that money has to be from governments. Well, guess what? It actually exists because of a social need. And so it doesn't necessarily have to come that way. And then we all know about reserve currencies, and we know the story behind that. So literally, reserve currencies were backed by gold, and now they no longer are, for good reasons and for that. So now we come to the question of, well, what is Bitcoin? So Bitcoin is, I don't think anyone's really defined it during this conference. I haven't heard anyone. So Bitcoin is essentially the world's first open source, decentralized digital currency and payment network. So that's a mouthful, right? So what does that actually mean? So let's parse that a little bit. So it's the world's first digital currency. So you could think of it, it's kind of like gold or rupees or dollars. The value of Bitcoin goes up and down. When I first heard about it 5 years ago, each Bitcoin was worth about $5 or $10. Today it's worth about $1,200. The other element of Bitcoin is that it's also a payment network, analogous to Visa, PayPal, a network for sending value from one point to another. And if you mix those 2 elements together and you make it open source and you make it distributed, that's essentially what Bitcoin is. What Uber is to taxi service, Bitcoin is to money in banks. What Airbnb is to hotels, Bitcoin is to essentially finances, right? So when you think about, email, what email is to the post office, Bitcoin is essentially to finance. Now, one of the best ways I like explaining it is most people in this room love the internet, correct? And most people in the room love money. So if you had internet and money come together and they had a baby, that would kind of be like what Bitcoin is. Let's take another stab at it. So Bitcoin is like gold, right? It's like gold with a teleporter. So all of us love gold. So my parents are from India. Gold is huge. In fact, Indian women own more gold than the United States government. Do you guys know that? Right, that's pretty exciting. But the problem with gold is that you have to store it. You got to put it in a it's just not fun, right? Because if I got a ton of gold and I want to do business with my friend in New York and I'm sitting in Bangalore, I can't. I got to go wait till Monday, take the gold, sell it. It's just a mess. It can take a week to wire the money. But with Bitcoin, I can zap it to anybody at the click of a button for almost free, and it's instantaneous. So why is Bitcoin similar to gold? Because money, like we talked about at the beginning, has certain fundamental properties, right? So whether it be fungibility, whether it be things like durability, whether it be impossible to forge, whether it be global in nature, portability, having a predictive supply. These are all really, really important things of what money needs to have. And Bitcoin, or the creators of Bitcoin, essentially looked at money and said, how do we reinvent it from the ground up? Right? And that's essentially what this is. So if you compare it to any asset class over the last 4 or 5 years, 100 times growth. I used to be a financial advisor. If you had 10% growth in a month or in a year, you'd be a king. And here last month it grew 20% or something, or 10%. Ridiculous. Okay, so why is Bitcoin transformative? So gold is a $9 trillion market, right? And even if Bitcoin were to take a tiny sliver of that, you'd see much, much higher Bitcoin prices. And I think that, and Bitcoin's even better in some ways because you can't really predict the supply of gold, right? Because maybe we find some gold in the bottom of a temple. Maybe they figure out how to bring down an asteroid and it's got gold inside of it. But with Bitcoin, it's mathematically scarce. You can't forge it. You can't, create new ones unless you're in the mining process. So just to go to the second one is global currency e-commerce. So we see Bitcoin. So the first stage is really people buying and selling Bitcoin because they think the price of Bitcoin is going to go up. The second stage is remittance, right? So I grew up in Canada. My dad used to send money back to my grandmother in Kolkata every month, every 2 months, and I saw that, and it just disturbed me that I could send an email or do a Skype call with anybody on earth, but if my grandmother needs to buy milk, she's got to wait a week and a half. The people in between her and I are going to take 10, 15, 20%. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. So we think that remittance is another area that's going to be a very, very exciting space. So I'm not going to go into that slide. I don't have time for it. I'm going to just zip through here. So a little bit about our company. So Meltem, who's on the panel a couple talks ago, so DCG Digital Currency Group invested in Unocoin about 2 or 3 years ago. We founded our company back in 2013. And just more recently, we had Bank to the Future, Bloom Ventures, Funders Club, the Drapers, the Boost, and a lot of the leading kind of thought leaders, investors in the space, and including Flip as well, who just introduced me, have come on as investors. We're super excited about that. So what do we do? As I mentioned, we make it easy for people to essentially get Bitcoin from the comfort of their home or from their mobile phone. And so our mission at Unocoin is we want to make money simple. We think it's overly complicated. It doesn't need to be. A form of money should be something that goes up in value. It should be something that you people send to anyone. It should be something that you own. We think that, and our vision is essentially, our mission is to bring Bitcoin to billions, and our vision is to bring it to make money simple. So this slide's kind of important. I wanted to spend a few minutes on this one. So when we started our business, this is more like our market size. Like I know Bitcoin is like this dinky little thing. It doesn't look very disruptive. Most people don't even talk about it. It's like Trump that way, I guess. But the truth is that yeah, it's only a $5 or $10 billion market, right? But then but if you look, Bitcoin so Microsoft accepts Bitcoin today, right? Dell, all these guys accept. In India, we're a merchant processor as well. So hundreds and hundreds of merchants are accepting it. So that's another huge area. Like I said before, we think digital gold. We think that holds a lot of promise. Remittance. And then, again, mobile phones are ubiquitous in India. So we think that has a lot of potential as well. And not to mention, last but not least, we think that Bitcoin can also potentially bank the unbanked. So with that said, I'm going to just zip through my last few slides here because I've only got 30 seconds left. Okay, so this is just the last thing I'll talk about. So some people have the misconception that perhaps Bitcoins are illegal in India, and some people have brought that even up over the last few days. Nishit Desai, anyone from India probably knows him, is the top techno-legal law firm in the country, and he was quoted as saying, Bitcoins per se are not illegal in India. They did a 2-year techno-legal study before they made that comment. Raghuram Rajan, who's the Janet Yellen equivalent of India, or was rather, now he's no longer, there's someone else in his place. But he also said things like over time, things like Bitcoin will be the form of transaction, or digital currencies rather. Okay, and with that, I just want to thank you for your time, and have a good day. And we have coffee. We're sponsoring the coffee, so you guys enjoy that. Oh, question. Yes, quickly.
Sunny, question for you.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a world without money? And if you can't, you need to go to Burning Man.
Can I imagine a world without money? Maybe like 5-10 years ago, I would have maybe said yes, but I don't see how you would allocate resources and things like that without money. Go to Burning Man. Thank you, everyone.